mind just telling us your first name?
My name's Jordan.
Could you tell us a little bit about your childhood?
Growing up, I was fortunate to, and still am, have my parents together. So that was a real game changer, I think, in just my child development and whatnot. Grew up in Southwest Denver, Harvey Park South. Parents were very hardworking, always at work. Grandparents watching us. I had my two older sisters. We have about a 10-year age difference, so I grew up with three mothers. But yeah, just a lot of play. Like I said, my parents were working all the time. My dad was holding down 2 jobs at one point. He's been at the library for almost 30 years now, so just, hardworking traits are in our blood. But, they worked hard to give me everything that I wanted. And I was fortunate enough to be in a position, or my family was in a better position than my sisters were growing up. So, I had more opportunity with sports, and Dad would work hard to get me a PSP if I wanted it and all that jazz, but he also reminded me how important it was to work hard for, what we wanted in life. So, yeah, that sums up the childhood for the most part.
What were your dreams as a child?
I wanted to be a cop. And yeah, I think it was just the need to help people, to want to help people and, make a difference in that aspect and through that vision. But that was my biggest dream growing up, or playing for the WNBA too. I think that was another big one too. But yeah.
Could you tell us more about your relationship with your dad and how that relationship felt?
The relationship with my dad, I admire him tremendously. He had to shoulder the family a lot growing up and never complained once. He was always happy to provide. I remember one time growing up, I was asking him for, I think, another shirt or something, and I didn't realize what he was doing at the time, but he was stitching up his Levi's jeans. And he's like, I've been trying to get me new jeans forever, like this and that. And I was like, Dad, that's fine, like, get that. He's just like, no, it's okay, like, what do you need? And I think just that heart, and again, just like that passion and that love that he had for us, like, always has persevered throughout all this time. And I think it played a big role in the relationship he has with my mom too. So again, just extremely admired by him.
What about your relationship with your mom?
My mom, I love her to death. She gives me a headache a lot of the time. She just has this unconditional love, and she always sees so much good in people that really don't see that in her. But again, she worked just as hard to provide for us, and I feel like she was robbed a lot of the opportunities that she had when she was younger. She didn't have a very great childhood growing up. So I think having all of us so young, she had my oldest sister when she was only 16 years old. So I think, yeah, her childhood got robbed from her, and, just growing through life together with us. So felt like a sister growing up a lot of the time, and if I needed that comfort ever, and still to this day, like, I know I could go to her. But we went through a lot of ups and downs, and just growing up, you realize a lot, like the way you were raised and whatnot. But I think once we got all of that out of the way, it brought us a lot closer together. And yeah, I see her as a human now.
What was your biggest takeaway from your parents, or your biggest lessons from them?
I would say just that we can always persevere, no matter what's thrown at us. Like I said, we had a lot of struggles thrown at us growing up, and we were fortunate enough to have them to take a lot of that weight from us. So I think just that protection, and again, that sense of love, was a foundation for me. I'm a lover at heart. Like, I'm a lover before a fighter, before anything. And my mom also reminded me to fight for what I love, and my dad as well. So I think just having that foundation really cultivated the woman that I am today, and it made a big impact on me growing up.
Could you tell us about your first love, whatever you associate as your first love, person, place, thing, hobby, and how that experience felt for that moment?
I'd say my first love was probably sports, honestly. Just always able to have goals set and to achieve them and that sense of that. And I think it brought a lot of people together as well. And just working as a team and pushing through whatever we needed to, any barrier, any whatever that popped up along the way. I've just always had a ball in my hand growing up, and I'd say that definitely was my first love. And it just helped me move through the world where I needed to, and even when things do get heavy, like I always find myself resulting to that and going to a basketball court and blowing off steam or whatever. But yeah, I would have to say that, like just that feeling of everything else closing out behind you and you just have me in this, and kind of like a sanctuary almost. So
could you tell us about your first loss or heartbreak and how that felt?
I'd say my first heartbreak came after my first boyfriend. He cheated on me when we were a few months in, and I stayed with him for 3 years. And again, just like that sense of being unconditional with people and wanting to try and like shouldering a lot of that weight, like, oh, if we stick to this and this and this, we can get through it. But it just really, it broke me down a lot. It really did. It made me lose my sense of worth, just of value and who I was as a person. I was just always at his hip and wanting to do what made him happy, because I just felt like I couldn't fill this hole that we both had. And we both came from very different childhoods, and I think that played a big role in things. But yeah, it was a lot, and it was pretty traumatic for us both, and I was the one to finally call it quits and say, I think this isn't good for us. And I remember telling him, like, somebody else is going to come along and love you exactly the way you need to be loved, and I hope you find that. And he has a son now, so I hope that filled that hole.
Do you want to talk more about that? Just that whole journey, that whole process of loving somebody else or thinking you're doing the right thing and then hurting yourself and all that, and then the growth from that on the other side of it?
It, like I said, it absorbed a lot of my energy, and I felt that after the fact, just obviously the breakup and all of that. But once I was able to feel myself in my entirety, I ended up moving to the mountains for 5 years after that. So just completely by myself, like in my own solitude. And it helped me pinpoint a lot of the things that went wrong with our relationship. And I know we even had a conversation after the fact, like, and he was just so happy for me and I was so happy for him. And I don't think there was any regrets that went along with it. Like, I know we were both grateful for the time we spent together. We did a lot of fun things together, and our families, whenever they would get on our backs about things, like, we always had each other. And again, just like that safe place for each other and that intimacy. So I grew a lot through it. It made me really wonder like what love was and all of that. And after him, I became more comfortable with my own sexuality, and I identify as a bisexual. And it just opened a whole different world of things, and it definitely helped cultivate my growth.
Who would you say first taught you what love is and how?
I would say probably my parents. A majority of my friends, I think I'm the only one out of my friend group whose parents are not divorced or separated. And it's just so common for our generations. And that's something that I do have to step back and ask, like, how that happens, And again, I think that just that partnership and that level of trust that they have for one another has just, again, helped me tremendously, and again, lay that foundation for what I think that love is. And not saying that their love is perfect, by all means. I don't think love is perfect, but again, just that foundation. Like, whenever things get up in the air, you have an argument about something or whatever, like, why are we here? It's for love. And I think that those morals and those values have paved a way for a lot of different areas of my life.
What's love to you now versus what it was when you were younger? How do those two loves contrast?
I've always had a very whimsical perspective on reality, and just growing up as a girl, like you want your Prince Charming and this and that, and just again that fairy tale happy ending. But yeah, I realized that that's not what love is, and it's one of my favorite quotes when it comes to love is from Maya Angelou, and it's that love liberates and it doesn't bind. It doesn't hold, it doesn't do any of that. It's that freedom. And I think that, and again, things that I noticed in my past relationship with my ex-boyfriend was that we were always wanting to hold on to each other and just hold on to what we had. But the minute that we were able to let that go, we both just, I would love to think for him, but for me personally, just experienced a different type of freedom. And it opened more doors and more opportunities and obviously more connections for us both. So definitely the fairy tale spiel got thrown off after that, but again, I think it opened the door to that. And again, just that liberation of who I am and how I identify myself, like I'm grateful it all happened because of that.
Can you describe the emotions or the feeling of that liberation or that freedom, like that internal?
It feels like, I don't know, just soft and gentle, and you feel the weight come off, I think. And again, just like these expectations that we hold with that, I think is what it is. And once you do let go of that, and it just helps you embrace things for what they are, I think. So that stillness and that calm.
What's a good day look like for you?
Probably with my people, sunrise, sunset in the mix, lots of laughs, doing something new, doing something old, and a lot of good food. I'm a foodie.
What's a bad day look like for you, and how do you get through it?
Bad day, yesterday was a good example of that one. But I'd say a bad day is just being overwhelmed. The noise in your head just doesn't stop. And I think it's frustrating for me when it comes to that because it feels like there's no escape with that. And yeah, it just gets overwhelming. I feel like I get lost under the current or buried with it all. And the weight just gets really heavy. And all I want to do is go home at the end of the day and go to bed. And that's really what it comes down to. But I am fortunate to have a stronger support circle now that I can lean on with all of that. So reached out to my people, and they just reminded me, like, it's just a bad day.
What are some of the internal things you do or some of the tools you use to navigate through those bad days?
I recently came to terms with the fact that I did need help about 2 to 3 years ago. So I've been in therapy and working through my traumas over the past of the 2 years, and I do have to lean on medication for that. And I think that doing that really helped me a lot with things. It made it able to decipher my good from my bad days, and again, acknowledging the fact that it is just a bad day. So I think that definitely, and just the way life has been, I'd say over the last 5 years, it really, I'd say, brought a lot of things to the surface, and I had a nice purge. And I think that my circle right now is just so strong and so lovable, and I don't even have to ask, like, they just pick me up when I'm down, and I'm extremely grateful for that.
What's a person or an event that's shaped you, good or bad?
I think overall just the trauma that I endured, when was this? 2016. I experienced some sexual trauma, and it took me a really long time to even come to terms with what actually happened. And for so long, I wasn't able to trust the world around me. I wasn't able to trust myself, even look at myself in the mirror. And again, once I went away to the mountains and just completely dove into solitude. And I think I did a lot of that too because I didn't want to be a burden to people, to my family and my friends. So just, again, me shouldering all that weight, but it allowed me to see me for me. And I guess just put it in my head that, like, I can go through these and it won't ruin me. It made me very cold for a while, and I felt that. And I think that, you know, you just feel the sun on your face in the morning. And it reminds you, like, yeah, you're alive, you're breathing, you're here, and things are going to be okay. So coming from that, it encouraged me to use my voice a lot more, most definitely. And I think that that is probably one of my greatest strengths that came from that. And I'm extremely grateful for that. And yeah, I think it just really helped me come in tune with myself and just kind of played a role as a catalyst in my journey. And yeah, it woke me up and got me to, again, see who I am and embark on my journey and get help and lean on my people. And honestly, if it weren't for all of that, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I think that's a very scary thought, but it's honestly extremely liberating too.
What's inspired you?
Probably my struggles and just the struggles of my people. Again, just that burning desire. And I'm a writer, I'm an author, and what makes you a writer and author is your desire to tell your story. And I think that that pushes me more than anything, or, you know, the things that people tell me, like, just in between us, that I'm like, just that vulnerability, you know. And that's the thing when it comes to art too, is people, like, you do something or you create something and people are always like, oh, you should sell that, like, oh, you should do this, yada yada yada. But for me personally, it just inspires me to connect more with people, you know, bring out the rawness in that, and the rawness in who they are and who they are as a person, like, that they don't show the rest of the world, you know. And I think that just that vulnerability and, again, that need for connection is one thing that really inspires me as I move through the world.
What's been a humbling experience for you?
When I did live in the mountains, you know, I felt like I had all that I needed at that time. And, you know, I had my own place, like, I had a job that paid me pretty well. Look out and just beautiful mountain valleys outside my window. I would see the Milky Way every night, and then things started to falter. And I watched this entire castle that I built up just come crumbling down. And it forced me to move back home to Denver and, you know, just be with my people. And again, I needed that support. So I think just, and it wasn't the first time doing that either. And, you know, I've said before, like, not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know anybody that's had in my life that has had that many ground up experiences and back down than I have. And just going through those notions of life, I feel like has just caused me to be a lot more gentle and a lot more aware of things, and obviously express a lot of gratitude through it all. So I'd say that's what humbled me more than anything.
Go in your mind and think, this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Can you tell us about a time in your life that you can relate with the word war?
I remember New Year's Eve, I think it was 2018, before 2018, so yeah, end of 2017 into 18. I had wanted to, you know, spend it with my people, and they couldn't make it up because of a storm. Had a terrible day at work, and yeah, being all alone, you know, it makes you feel some certain type of way. My thoughts started to get to me, and things started to get really heavy, and I went out on the reservoir after this crazy blizzard that we just had, and I just screamed at the sky. And I think that that battle in my head was one of the hardest things to overcome. And it's not the only time that that's happened for me. You know, suicidal thoughts start to tap in, and those tendencies, and just all things like that. And any time that I do get in those mindsets, like, I feel one side of me pulling one direction, I feel the other side of me pulling another. And an internal war is definitely the best way to describe that.
How do you fight that war?
It's hard to get out of that. It really is, you know, and I just think that you gotta let it out. You really do. You know, you're human, you have emotions, like, you know, it's natural. So I think that, again, allowing myself to feel that and go through those notions and experience those thoughts and experience those emotions was the big game changer. And again, saying it's okay to be human. But something I always tell my people is you can swim, but just don't sink. And I think that once I'm able to pull myself up from that, whether I've had strangers come in to me at the most random times and find me and like just that simple, are you okay? And just reconnect me back to reality, or, you know, just these certain, honestly, in my opinion, angels that just find their way to me and just remind me that like I'm not alone in this and like it's going to be okay.
So the next question, same type of question. Go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Could you tell us about a time in your life that you can relate to the word peace?
I still go there from time to time, but, you know, after going through those depressive spirals and this and that, springtime into summer is like really just my season in general. So, you know, seasonal depression wears off and all that jazz. And I love adventures, you know, just that wanderlust always fuels me so well. But I went out to Utah and did a hike up Angel's Landing, and it was like right at sunset. Not as many people were up there, it wasn't as crowded, and just sat there and watched the sunset. And I could still see it, I could still feel it, I could taste like the way the air was, or all of that. And yeah, you know, you just climbed an entire freaking canyon too. So I'd say that that feeling alone, and again being on a place called Angel's Landing, I think was probably one of the most peaceful I felt.
Could you tell us about a truly difficult time in your life, how that felt and how you endured?
Acknowledging the fact that I'm a survivor has been one of the biggest things in my growth and my development, and again, who I am as a person. I have survived rape. I have survived 3 suicide attempts. And my last one, I was just at work one day and I was like, I'm gonna go to Utah. And I was like, go to Utah. I was like, okay. I didn't realize what I was doing at the time, but I told my sister where I would be and all that jazz. And I just went out in 102-degree weather, no water, no food, no nothing, and I just wandered. And the darkness definitely took over through that. And the desert starts to play tricks on you after a while. You know, you think you're going one direction, you think you hear something, and eventually I look around and I'm completely lost and off trail. And again, just that whole mental spiral of things just starts to set in. And I put myself here, like, how am I gonna get out of it? And honestly, I really can't tell you, like, how it all happened because I really just genuinely don't remember. But somebody found me, and they gave me water, and they led me back to the trail and sat and talked with me about life and what I was going through, and I never got their name.
What did they tell you? Or what did you feel when you were talking to them?
a lot of the weight got taken off. And things didn't feel as alone. And even just like that one drink of water after being completely parched and in a drought, like just the nourishment. And it felt like nourishment for the soul after that. And, you know, I went back to my campground that night and what just happened? And, you know, I had to sit with that for such a long time. And I think that it was just a good tap on the shoulder that, like, you really aren't alone. Like, literally in the middle of a desert, like, you're not alone. And, yeah, that was just a giant weight off my heart. And it's one of the moments that forced me to move forward and just, you know, practice more gratitude on a daily basis and take care of myself and reach out for that help when I needed it. And yeah, I think that was a real game changer and turning point for everything.
What about that moment made you, what realization in that moment did you have that was like those aha moments? Sometimes we get those, right, in those spiritual or emotional moments that we have. What was the realization like after that encounter, like that you go to bat for, that you know?
I think just the big realization is, you know, I've never seen my life past 30. Mm-hmm. And I kind of just dropped a pin in that moment, you know, and just, it got me to realize that there is a lot more out there. And like even after that trip and after I left the campground, I saw the most beautiful sunset ever after that. And just all of these little signs and symbols that kept coming up along the road, it just reminded me that like there is so much more out there, you know, like there's so much more to feel, there's so much more to experience, like obviously more people to connect with too. And I think that's what really got it for me. And it made me wonder, like, what really makes me happy? Like, what am I living for? Like, and you know, that whole drive home, I'm sitting here thinking about all of this, and my sister texts me back. She's like, "Are you back in Colorado yet?" Family, connection, love. That's the aha.
Next question, could you tell us about a truly joyous moment in your life and how that felt?
I'd say when I was, how old was I when she was born? I think I was 13 when she was born, but the first time holding my niece. Just this little soft puddle of joy, like sitting in my arms, and the first time she opened her eyes and looked at me. I think that alone, like, that was probably the closest that I'd come to like experience birth and like the growth of a human and this and that. And she's 13 years old now and it just trips me out so much. But I'd say that's probably one of the most joyous moments that I've had, was being able to hold her and like, hey little human, welcome to the world. Like,
what keeps you up at night?
The giant list of to-do things that I have in my head, whether that's with work, whether that's with what I want to do with my career, what I want to do in this life, or any of that. I'd say that that's the biggest thing that keeps me up, is just that consistent wanting to do more and feeling like I haven't been doing enough, or I'm not doing enough, or that I am not enough. I'd say that those are probably one of the biggest things that gnaws at me in the back of my mind.
What keeps you going every day?
It's Just again, what I said earlier, that there's just so much more to see. You know, we get so caught up in the cycle, like whether you work a 9 to 5 or not, like we all just get so caught up in the spin and the whirl of things that I think we oftentimes do forget to just live and just to embrace everything that you need to feel or whatever you need to do or whatever sets your heart free and your soul free. And I just know that a lot of those opportunities to embrace those moments are right around the corner. You know, I always say that, you know, you never know what's next until you hit the corner. And there's an entire other world around there that you have yet to see. So you just got to keep going.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets?
One of my biggest life sayings is, what's regret when you've embraced every moment that's passed? And when you just think about that, like, it reminds you that the presence is so precious and that so much can be done in the present moment. And once you do take that into consideration, like what's regret when you've embraced every moment that's passed, you become a lot more conscientious of what you do, how you spend your time, who you spend your time with, the words you say. Every little action throughout the day you become more mindful of. And I think in doing that, it also allows you to make peace with what has passed and just allows you to build that bridge for what's coming forward. So I started living by that when I was young. So honestly, if I was on my deathbed, I don't think I would have any regrets.
What are your dreams now?
To be free. Just in a nutshell. One of my biggest dreams is to just be completely self-sustainable. I want a tiny house too. I saw that on the channel already. But I want a tiny house, and you know, I just want to be independent, like with my work and all of that, and just be able to build from that. Because I feel like just where my family comes from, we've never really had those opportunities. And you know, I want to start building for me and my future kin as well. So just to have that freedom to, you know, just again enjoy life for what it is and experience all of that and try all the foods and see all the sights and all. And I think that once I can do that, you know, I can start laying down more roots and building other dreams that come up after that.
You're the co-author of your life story. What's your picture perfect? And it doesn't have to be the end. It's just if it's a movie or a book, like you're like, this would be nice.
I've actually been trying to write a book for the last 6 years, and it's called Beauty in the Struggle. And Beauty in the Struggle initially was supposed to be just a poetry chapter book. And going through my depressive cycles, it turned into a goodbye letter. And it was done, it was written, it was. And I burned it. And I always get asked, like, why haven't you finished it yet, and this and that. And the idea has just developed into so much more than just that. And I'm starting to realize now that what I'm trying to do is just captivate my entire journey this far. And I think at the end of that story, I want to be able to find the beauty in all of the struggles that I've endured. Had those aha moments.
That's it. Is there anything you'd like to add or talk about? We have a lot of time.
I just want to say that if anybody out there is going through anything heavy, regardless if it's big or small, that there is a lot more around the corner. So next time you hit a bump or a turn in the road, just stop, look back in the rearview mirror, and hit the gas hard. Because whatever's around the corner is going to be so much more beautiful. And that's a promise.